Hello there, good evening. Parliament returned today, led by the new Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. But tomorrow comes the real test. Sir Keir on his way to the States on his first foreign trip to attend the NATO summit in Washington. Well, the Prime Minister will be among the leaders of 31 other member countries meeting on the 75th anniversary of the alliance. Shortly, we are expecting to hear from President Joe Biden as he delivers a speech as the host of the summit from the Mellon Auditorium, where the NATO treaty was signed back in 1949. First, though, let's hear from our US correspondent Mark Stone with this report.
Sometimes in politics, timing is luck. And for the new Prime Minister on week one, it is Washington and 2 days with the leaders of 31 other Western nations.
This NATO summit is an opportunity for allies to stand together to strengthen their resolve, particularly in light of that appalling attack against Russian aggression. I'm pleased to have the early opportunity to affirm and reaffirm Labour's strong support, unshakable support for NATO.
And leaving with a landslide majority behind him also makes Keir Starmer among the most stable, comfortable of Western leaders. It's been a while since the UK could carry this political confidence.
Secretary-General Stoltenberg, when you're ready, it's your pitch.
In Washington, the opening moment for this summit hardly reflected the challenges facing NATO. The ballpark and an honorary first pitch.
Great pitch
For the outgoing Secretary-General. And then to business for Jens Stoltenberg, who's led the alliance for 9 years and through its biggest challenge, Ukraine and Russia.
This summit will be a celebration summit, but as you understand, the only way to celebrate the most successful alliance in history is to demonstrate that we are fit for purpose also for the future.
Touching down, NATO's two newest members, Sweden and Finland's absorption into the alliance has physically bolstered it, an eastern flank that's now double what it was. The idea is a shared message of unity against Putin. Clearly, then, the core of all this is Ukraine and a war dragging on. And while there is a good degree of unity among the alliance, there is no clear strategy for just how Ukraine wins this. And it is compounded by distractions. The elephant in the room, President Biden, the aging host, and just how he'll get through this summit after that disastrous debate.
I'm with Joe. I'm with Joe. As I've said before, I'm with Joe.
It is hardly ideal that the president should be facing this sort of political pressure in a week like this.
Does President Biden commit to serving a full second term if re-elected?
Yes.
Why doesn't anybody in the president's family urge him just to go to get checked out to say the coast is clear?
Okay, so just to step back just a little bit.
And just 4 months before the US election.
I don't want to go backwards.
Any slip-ups only undermine his chances in November, and the leaders at this summit do not know quite what their alliance would look like under a second Trump presidency. Mark Stone, Sky News in Washington.
Well, topping the agenda at that NATO summit is Ukraine and the threat posed by Russia on the people there and more widely on NATO countries. Sky News has spoken to a member of staff working at the Children's Hospital in Kyiv as a Russian missile hit during the deadliest attack this year on Ukraine. So the attacks in cities across the country yesterday mainly hit civilian infrastructure. In Kyiv, a business park, a private clinic and that children's hospital were among the buildings hit. Russia has claimed it was targeting military infrastructure. A video of the moment of the attack was filmed from this building and verified by Sky News' data and forensics team. The building housing the hospital's toxicology unit was heavily damaged, appearing to have been hit directly. Well, the video appears to show a missile heading towards the hospital. Through geolocation and using the visible trajectory of that missile, Sky News has determined this was the weapon responsible for the destruction at the hospital. Analysts at the defence intelligence firm Janes have said it is a KH-101 long-range cruise missile, a weapon in the Russian army's arsenal. Our security and defence editor Deborah Haynes has more.
As the clean-up began, the scale of the trauma became clear. This is the doctor who died helping children on dialysis at a hospital in Kyiv during a Russian missile attack. A colleague of Svetlana Lukyanchuk, pictured here together, described the horror as she took young patients and their parents to safety following the blast.
It's terrifying. It's truly terrifying. And you know you have to hold on, because the children are there, and their mothers are screaming. They're in constant pain. And now this pain is even worse. And when you see that, you have to hold on until the very end.
Svetlana had gone to check on some of her patients who'd gone to a shelter in the hospital basement when the air raid siren sounded on Monday. She'd then returned to a treatment centre to stay and support other children attached to dialysis machines who couldn't be moved. The 30-year-old was killed when the missile struck. More than 300 people were injured here, including 8 children. Addressing an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, the head of the hospital said a Russian missile was to blame.
Striking of children's hospital, we were children and treated for cancer and other heavy disease is not just a war criminal. It's far beyond the limit of humanity.
Ukraine released images it said showed fragments of the Russian weapon that was used. Analysis by Sky's Data and Forensics also found the munition resembled a Russian Kh-101 missile. The strike drew condemnation from allies such as the UK and the US. But Russia, which holds the rotating presidency of the Council, accused Ukraine.
This was clearly a missile from the Ukrainian air defence. Here you get the magic of verbal gymnastics at the UN Security Council, trying by any means to protect the Kyiv regime.
In the ruins of the hospital, the reality of Russia's war is all too clear. Death, fear, but also a determination to survive. Deborah Hain, Sky News.
Well, Mark Stone is at the NATO summit in Washington, joins us now. So 75 years of NATO. Mark, Joe Biden due to speak shortly, meet leaders and host this event, of course. So what can we expect?
I think three key strands, I think, for us to reflect on as we look forward to this day, 2 days tomorrow. The first, clearly, is Keir Starmer, a massive moment for him. It is unusual for a new British Prime Minister to have such a moment so soon in his premiership. He will arrive here late tonight, the last leader to arrive, because he had to be in Parliament today. So he will arrive very late tonight. We'll miss the event that all eyes are on now, which is the second key strand, I think, and that is President Biden's speech at the beginning, the formal opening of this summit. A summit that is being described as the biggest, most important summit of its kind here in Washington, D.C. In 3 decades. The streets are gridlocked here in the downtown area as all eyes are here at the convention center where the event will take place tomorrow, and now at the Mellon Auditorium where back in 1949 the North Atlantic Treaty was signed. All eyes on Biden, frankly, because clearly, as I said in my report, there is so much concern about his health, about his ability to fight the presidential election in just 4 months' time. And of course, the other elephant in the room linked to that is if he is not capable of beating Donald Trump in November, then what does NATO look like in a second Trump presidency? Huge unanswered questions about that, given Donald Trump's suggestions that he would like perhaps to leave NATO. He's meandered on that many times. No one really knows. And then, of course, the third strand is Ukraine itself. And one statistic, I think, sums it up for me. I was talking to a NATO official earlier today, an intelligence official for NATO, who said they believe Russia has the ability, or is, recruiting 30,000 new soldiers to the fight in Ukraine every single month. 30,000. The Russians claim they have the upper hand. The challenge for NATO is to claim that that is not true, to prove that NATO and that Ukraine can win this war.
Mark, we will, of course, head back to the Mellon Auditorium when we see President Joe Biden. For now, thank you very much indeed. Well, 643 MPs crammed into the House of Commons today as Parliament returned after the general election. Power was transferred from one party to another as the government and opposition moved into their new seats in the chamber. Sir Keir Starmer welcomed the most diverse Parliament by race and gender, and Rishi Sunak promised to rebuild the Conservative Party. Sky's deputy political editor, Sam Coates, reports.
This is what victory looks like. Overflowing government benches and newbie Labour MPs in the gangways rubbing shoulders with the cabinet. After a record win, a Prime Minister who can afford to look gracious. All sides backing the re-election of this man, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, to continue as the 158th Commons Speaker, overseeing a new Parliament that looks very different.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
We have the opportunity and the responsibility to put an end to a politics that has too often seemed self-serving and self-obsessed.
The Leader of the Opposition, Rishi Sunak.
This man's still facing the same opponent, and he will be for some time to come, according to the rules of the leadership contest released today.
Let me begin with a message to those who are no longer sitting behind me. I am sorry. We have lost too many diligent, community-spirited representatives.
Nigel Farage.
On a day of consensus, one man sought the limelight with a personal attack.
You have brought tremendous dignity to the role as Speaker, and it is, I must say, in marked contrast to the little man that was there before you and besmirched the office so dreadfully.
Over the road in Downing Street, England's mayors gathered with good intentions and plans for collaboration. 10 of these faces Labour. One, Tees Valley Mayor Ben Houchen, a Conservative who just days ago was the face of levelling up.
Congratulations.
Today, congratulating the Deputy Prime Minister hours after she axed the name levelling up from her government department. More areas to get mayors, more powers for existing mayors. That means more demands in the in-tray of the Prime Minister, including on issues you thought had been settled.
It's not about going back to HS2, though. We accept that has gone. What it is about doing is having an alternative to the West Coast Main Line when those HS2 trains start running between London and Birmingham.
How you reimagine the health.
Across town, a man who knows how it's done, hosting a conference and making clear government isn't easy.
Sitting around the cabinet table, thinking I had this huge majority, and thinking, well, since I'm the Prime Minister, if I say something should happen, something's going to happen. Nothing happened.
His successor has promised change. Don't expect it to be completely smooth.
So he's got the experience, he's had the time in opposition, really no excuses for getting it wrong.
They're always going to be. But look, we didn't get everything right. This government won't get everything right, but the important thing is you get more things right than wrong.
Unity in Westminster. Next stop, Washington, for bonding with world leaders, building goodwill while he can. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
And Sam joins us now. That big change then, Sam, in British politics, clearly on show today.
That's right, Anna. You saw the changing of the guard in the Commons, but also there's a changing of the guard in the wider political climate. I'm standing in front of the Spectator building, which since 1828 has been a crucible of conservatism. Their summer party, which is tonight behind me, just winding up, the hot ticket for every Tory that you might hope to meet. Yet tonight, while the Tories inside have been licking their wounds, bitterness and anger evident, it's been a parade of Labour cabinet ministers coming in and out of the building behind me that has been most striking. Also striking the contrast between the unity that you did see in the Commons and the increasingly angry and fractious war, not about who should take over the Conservative Party. This evening, we appear to have further indications that they're going to go from the leadership from Kemi Badenoch and James Cleverly, but also just how this contest is going to be conducted. There's a new chairman of the 1922 committee, the group that oversees Tory rules and Tory backbenchers, Bob Blackman. But now the question is, should the party go long and maybe even wait until Christmas to select a new leader? A prominent Tory backbencher trying to convince me tonight that that was the best option. Others thinking that that clears the way for a combination of Nigel Farage's Reform UK and Labour to toxify the Tories even more than they are already. Anger everywhere inside the Conservative Party against some unity in Parliament for other parties. It doesn't look like the next few months for the Tories is going to get anything other than worse.
Sam Coates, thank you. 8-month-old Zachary Blades and his aunt, Carleen Warner, were killed instantly when a man driving more than 140 miles an hour and on his phone ploughed into the back of their car on the A1. 38-year-old Daryl Anderson was coming back from holiday and had been drinking on the plane. Today, he was jailed for more than 17 years. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, reports.
Zachary Blades was just 8 months old when he died because of a man, a judge said, who'd played Russian roulette with the lives of others. Daryl Anderson had already been drinking excessively on a plane when he drove out of Newcastle Airport on May the 31st. He took a photo of his dashboard showing he was driving at 141 miles per hour, moments before he crashed into the car carrying Zachary and his aunt Carleen. Both were killed.
I've just got back off holiday.
Have you had anything to drink?
Pardon?
Have you had anything alcoholic drink?
I had a little bit to drink on plane.
So that's a fail. You've gone 95. All right. So you're further arrested on suspicion of drink driving. All right. Same caution applies.
What's
95. The legal limit's 35.
Is it?
Yeah.
I drove into the back of another car. Yeah. Now, sometimes mistakes happen. But I'm not a bad person.
Police found an empty vodka bottle in the wreckage of his Audi. Zachary's mum found her son's body on the other side of the road.
No one should have to go through what we've gone through, and if we can stop that next person, make them think twice, then we've done some good, and Carleen and Zach's lives were more than that. So please join us now in our justice for Zachary and Carleen, and we will not stop. I will fight every single day that I'm on this earth for them. Thank you.
Anderson was sentenced to 17 years in prison. The judge told him what he did that night made a fatal accident inevitable.
For his actions, Anderson will now spend a considerable amount of time in prison. But it is his victims and family who have been handed the life sentences today.
Zachary's loss, his mum said, had left an irreparable hole in her heart. A night, she says, she relives over and over, and a little boy's future, and a life together, stolen. Greg Milam, Sky News.
To Russia now, and a court in Moscow has ordered the arrest of Yulia Navalnaya, the widow of the late Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny, one of Putin's most vociferous critics. The court accused Ms. Navalnaya, who lives outside Russia, of participating in an extremist group. Our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett, joins me now. So what does this decision mean then, Ivor?
Well, the first thing to say is that this is really no surprise. The surprise is just how long this has taken, because it's 5 months now since Alexei Navalny died in prison here in Russia, and it's 5 months since his widow, Yulia Navalnaya, vowed to continue his work as an opposition activist. And since then, a number of his associates have faced arrest here in Russia. So one wonders, why did it take so long for this arrest order to be made? Officially, Yulia Navalnaya has been accused of participating in an extremist group. That's because Alexei Navalny's anti-corruption organisation is labelled as such. It's labelled as extremist. It's accused of having links with the CIA. Practically speaking, what this arrest order means is not very much, actually, because Yulia Navalnaya lives outside Russia. Yes, she would face arrest if she ever was to return, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. She didn't even return to Russia for her husband's funeral back in March in Moscow, for example. So this is more symbolic. It shows that the authorities are still going after Navalny's associates long after his death. We've had some reaction tonight from Yulia Navalnaya on social media. She's urged her supporters to focus not on the court decision itself, but on Vladimir Putin. She accuses Russia's president of ordering what she calls her husband's murder. The Kremlin, though, has repeatedly denied any involvement in his death.
Ivor, live there in Moscow, thank you. Junior doctors' representatives today said they had a positive first meeting with the new Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, but have not ruled out fresh strikes. Industrial action over the last 18 months has caused widespread disruption across the National Health Service. Junior doctors in England say their pay has been severely cut over the last 15 years and have been calling for a 35% increase. Our health correspondent Ashish Joshi has this report.
A new vision for the NHS from a new health secretary. Better health outcomes, driving economic growth.
We will help you achieve your mission for growth and improve the prosperity and lives of everyone in this country by making sure that we are with you lockstep in driving growth. That is a big shift in mindset.
That's the future. The present has problems that need to be urgently addressed. One of the most pressing, the first talks with junior doctors.
We're happy to have those conversations. We've never once walked out of the room, and we never will. We want to continue talking, and that's what we've agreed to. We've agreed to a meeting next week.
Underpaid. The new government says it will drive down waiting lists, but it can't do that without resolving this dispute, and quickly. In public, both sides are urging patience. They say this is a process which will take some time. But in private, they know that the clock is already ticking. The BMA's mandate for strike action expires in September, which means that if they wanted to continue with industrial action, they'll have to ballot their members in August, and that is next month. And this is why it matters. Mary has been waiting over 2 years for knee replacement surgery.
I can only walk for a few minutes as well. The pain in my knee and my back just, well, I start crying with it. There's lots of people in my position, all waiting in this long waiting list that never ends.
Wes Streeting has already met dentist leaders and been to see GPs to learn more about the problems in primary care. Health leaders, though, warn they must be involved in his plans to fix the NHS.
There has to be a level of patience and of understanding, but crucially of making sure we're putting the plans in place for the medium to longer term.
Mary and millions of patients like her will share the new health secretary's concerns, but now they want his words to be turned into action, and soon. Ashish Joshi, Sky News.
The new government's decision to kill off the Rwanda plan has started another new conversation about how the UK tackles illegal immigration, how to stop small boat crossings and what to do about the people who are already here. Today, the High Court confirmed the scheme was officially scrapped. Our communities correspondent Becky Johnson reports.
Just weeks ago, going in here came with a risk of being detained for Rwanda. But the Prime Minister's promise to scrap the scheme was confirmed in the High Court, just as these asylum seekers were turning up for routine appointments at this Home Office building in West London.
It's very nice news for us, for our asylum in this country.
Omar from Sudan had been warned he could be sent to Rwanda. So had this Afghan woman who came by small boat to the UK last year.
I feel happy now because they have cancelled it and I'm no more worried about it. I don't know what is going to happen next, but I hope so they will give us documents.
The Rwanda plan had left tens of thousands of people in limbo, unable to claim asylum in the UK, but not knowing if or when they'd be sent to Rwanda, living indefinitely in Home Office-funded accommodation. Now the new government has scrapped the plan, people are still waiting. to find out what happens next and how long the process will take. In the High Court, a government lawyer confirmed no one will be put on planes. But groups representing asylum seekers urged the Home Office to say what it does plan to do.
In terms of people whose claims are still not being considered, we want them to now withdraw all the notices of intent and consider everybody's claims here in the UK.
We asked the Home Office how many people's claims will now be processed. We're still waiting for their response. Still, new arrivals keep coming across the Channel. Today, dozens of men, women and children adding to the record numbers who've made the journey since the start of this year, led away to join the thousands still waiting to know their futures. It's as the strains on the system were laid bare, a report detailing chaos at Harmondsworth Immigration Detention Centre near Heathrow. Inspectors found violence and drug abuse were rife, and numerous detainees had attempted suicide. The former Conservative Home Secretary criticised for failing to respond to concerns raised.
We found conditions which were among the worst we've ever seen. I've been doing this job for the best part of 20 years, and I've never been to a centre where conditions had deteriorated so much.
The new government said it's vital detentions and removals are carried out with dignity and respect. The challenge for them is how to fix an asylum system that most would agree is broken. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
Now to the football. In the last half hour, Spain has beaten France 2-1 to reach the Euro 2024 final. We'll bring you all the action from tonight in a moment. England, meanwhile, have been preparing for their turn tomorrow against the Netherlands. Sky's Jackie Beltrao is in Germany.
Both sets of fans are arriving in Dortmund knowing their team are just one game away from the final. There's a lot of orange, and with Holland just 2 hours drive away, it's expected England fans will be outnumbered 4-1. But as the England manager took final questions ahead of his team's third major semi-final in 4 tournaments, he recalled his own happy memories of beating the Dutch at Euro 96.
Our fans, whether there are more or less, will make themselves heard, I'm sure, and it will be a brilliant, colourful occasion because, you know, my memories of playing against Holland with the orange in the stadium are really vivid. So, in the end, the players want to play in those sorts of occasions.
The full squad trained together and Southgate was giving no clues as to who would start. But after their quarter-finals penalty win, it seems confidence is not an issue.
As we've been doing better and getting better in the tournaments, the expectation gets higher, and that's been no different. So, yeah, I think people will use it in different ways. Some will use it as motivation to, you know, up their game and up their level. Some will just block it out and, you know, just focus on what they need to do.
England, England, England!
Southgate knows that if he can get this team a blend of youth and experience to finally click, to finally put in an all-round performance, he will silence the critics. They will also silence some 80,000 fans in this city and be a step closer to a second consecutive Euros final. Things can only get better. Have you been disappointed so far?
I wouldn't say disappointed. We got to the semi-finals, but it can definitely be better, the calibre of players we've got.
We've somehow managed to make it for every stage without meaning to, so we've not been playing our best and we've somehow managed to do it.
Holland will win.
Why are you so confident? England have good players.
We have good players. So I'm confident. We will win.
But with Spain waiting in the final in Berlin, they'll be hoping the team can get the job done anyway at all. Jackie Beltrao, Sky News, Dortmund.
Well, our sports correspondent Rob Harris joins me now. So we now know one of the finalists, Rob, Spain triumphant in a quality game.
Yeah, high-quality match in Munich, and many of the England and Netherlands fans watching here to discover who their potential opponent would be on Sunday. It was France who did take the lead. It was their first goal from open play at these Euros. It was a Kylian Mbappe cross that was headed in by Randall Kolo Muani. But the league didn't last long. It was cancelled out in a spectacular fashion. The strike from distance by Lamine Yamal, and in doing so, the 16-year-old Barcelona player became the youngest ever player to score at a major tournament, surpassing the previous record set in 1958 by Pelé. And then the winner from Spain came from Dani Olmo, and that's ensured that Spain will be in their first European Championship final since they won their third title in 2012. And then focus shifts from Munich here to Dortmund tomorrow for the England game against the Netherlands. England, of course, trying to win their first ever Euros title, but trying to reach the final for the second consecutive edition. And is a reminder that we've been hearing from Gareth Southgate today about the level of consistency that he has produced with this squad. This is his third semi-final with England. In the entire history of English men's football before him, England only reached 4 semi-finals. So he's been reflecting today on how the fear and trepidation has been removed, but he knows the expectation has been growing, and that's perhaps why some of the performances were a bit underwhelming in the group stage, but they keep getting the results, even with the penalty shootout win against Switzerland. Bit of focus too on the referee tomorrow night, Felix Zweier, who's previously had a match-fixing ban, but Gareth Southgate said he's sure he's the right choice.
We'll do it all again tomorrow, shall we, Rob? Thank you very much indeed, Rob, there live for us in Dortmund. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, joined by the broadcaster and journalist Jenny Kleeman and the CEO of the Total Politics Group, Mark Wallace. Welcome to both of you. And among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front of The Guardian. The headline for tomorrow's paper, Starmer calls on NATO to raise defence spending. Plenty more on that after this.